Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Rich here today. Today we're going to be changing some plugs and wires on this 2008 Ford Explorer. Let's give you some part numbers. The plug part number is, well, it's actually down there, but I was trying to see, there they are. You need 7159 NGK plugs. If you want to use NGK, you don't have to, but there's one, and then right here is for the wires. Doing this isn't too hard, but still, take a look at the video and make sure you feel confident enough to do it. The driver's side is actually super simple. The passenger side, it's still pretty simple. We're just gonna have to remove the intake so that way we can get in there to get at those plugs. Let's start off on this side, why don't we? So, first thing is, you really do wanna let your vehicle cool. And then after you do so, you can see our plug wires are right here. And we'll just start with one that's simple, this center one. You reach down, get your fingers around it, and pull it out. Leave it dangling here. The reason why is, what I like to do is pull it, then we'll pull the plug, we'll put a new plug in there, and then we'll leave it dangling there so that way we know that we've swapped that plug. And then we'll go through afterwards with the wires. Don't bother with the wires right now unless you really want to. I like to leave the wires until the very end, or once you get one side done, because then you can swap out all the wires on that one side. And by doing this and leaving it unplugged like that, then you know you've swapped that plug already. Pretty simple, right? Okay, let's go get a 5/8 spark plug socket and a ratchet, and let's pull that plug. Pretty easy to know if you have a spark plug socket. See how it has that hex around the back end of it? That usually tells you a pretty good indicator that it is a spark plug socket. Other ways, look inside, you'll see a little black cushion on the inside of the socket that grips the porcelain part up here, and make sure that, or I should say ceramic porcelain, whatever you want to say. Anyways, this portion of the plug and protects it from being damaged when pulling them out or putting them in. So once again, all we're going to do is slide the socket on, make sure your wrench is on off, or remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. For those people that don't know, again, the wrench should be going down on the driver's side to loosen it. These ones are actually in there quite loose. One step I recommend that you do, go ahead, throw a little bit of dielectric grease. If you live in corrosive climates around the world like I do, and that means anywhere near the salt water of the ocean. If you live anywhere near salt water, then you probably notice that you have a little bit more rust than other people around the world, and that's why you want to do stuff like this to try and just keep it lubricated so that way it doesn't get corroded. So now that we've gone ahead, thrown a little bit, it'll also help it slide in and out of the socket a little bit easier when you're putting it in with the spark plug socket. So now that we've gone ahead, thrown a little bit of dielectric grease on there, we can go ahead, slide that into our spark plug socket and tie it in. Another trick for you, always go in, and then once you think you've got it lined up back there, go backwards 3 times and then start going in. Well, Rich, why would you do that? And the reason why is then there's less chance of it cross-threading, because if this cross-threads, it's going to be a really, really bad day. And then, as you can see, I'm tying into it, and we aren't cross-threading. You can go ahead, tighten that up. And again, you can, if you've done enough spark plugs, and by the time you get better at doing them, in case this is your first time, you won't use a torque wrench. You'll know where it is with your hand, and you'll end up tightening it up. You'll just maybe once in a while, if you're working on certain aluminum head engines and whatnot, you'll be looking up the torque spec to make sure you don't strip it. But something like this, one hand, that's it. It's like doing your drain plug on the bottom of the motor. You just tighten it up with one hand. Don't go He-Man so you don't strip out your drain plug. So the one on the far side is self-explanatory, but as you can see, look at the side of the hose that I went on for the AC plug, because there's the plug that's right there, right by the AC line, and the only way to get at it is by getting right beside on the inside between this piece and the AC line, and you'll have to get in there. But that's all the trickiness really to this side. There's not that much trickiness. That's why I'm not really showing you pulling out every plug on this side. So for changing the wires, as you can see, it's going to be pretty easy. The 3 fronts are for these 3 plugs, and the 3 back are for those 3. We know that there's 3 different lengths. So let's do the shortest plug wire first. Now, to be able to swap them, what you need to do is pop open this clip. To do so, if you look right down here, see if I can show you, this is a little, just a pick tool. You can also do this with a mini flat blade. But you'll notice if you're looking right here, see if I can get a better camera angle here, but right here anyways, there's a little clip that's down here. What you need to do is get your hook pick in there, and I just did it, but you'll see there's a little separation right here. You push down and pull the clip back. You'll see it's got that hook on it. So what you're doing is you're basically just putting your hook pick in there and pushing it down so that hook lets out, and then you can open this up. There'll be one more farther down. Go ahead, do the exact same thing, so that way we can have these wires come out and be free. This is to plug to our coil, which is the one that's on this side of the dipstick. Bring it up here, grab the 2 top ends, squeeze, and just lift up as you squeeze. As you can see, it comes off, which is perfect. We would pick up this one right here, come over to our handy dandy setup, follow these wires, so come up. If you want, you can clean this up, which I'll probably quickly do right now. Just a little bit of finger cleaning, and then just squeeze down. That locks in. Follow the same path. This one goes to the very bottom of this piece, so we know that that one goes to the very bottom, comes over here, and then grab this and squeeze it on. You'll feel a noticeable click on the tip of that plug. So push it on, and there it is. I just felt the click, and I'm squeezing just a little bit more to make sure. And then, like I said, for order on this clip, this one goes in the bottom, just like that. Okay, now that we've got our first one, grab the next one, which is the middle one. That's going to be our second shortest one, and then we'll do the third one. Another important thing to note is the middle plug goes to the far side. So don't go thinking that front plug, middle plug, back plug, because it's not. Middle plug goes to the far here, and this goes to the firewall plug. Congrats, you've got the whole driver's side done now. Like I said, first plug, second plug, third plug. Firewall, middle, front of the engine bay. Let's go ahead now. We're going to start disconnecting and removing the intake. So first thing you should do is pull this, sink this in, pull it out. Once you get that out, go ahead, take this, and there's a green tab. Wrap your finger around the back, and what you're doing is you're pushing it down. There's no way I can show you this. Basically, see how I'm pushing down the green so it goes down towards the bottom? What it's doing is it's freeing the ring so I can slide this out. So push down like this. See? Makes it open up. Make sure when you put it on later that you do the same. We can leave the throttle sensor right here because that's not going to be in our way. Now from here, the next thing we want to do is grab an 8mm on a ratchet. We're going to loosen this clip off so we can wiggle this and move it out of the way. Once you've loosened that clip, go ahead, just reach down and pull it off. Look at that, we're now free. Now that we've got that free, we need to free up this piece. Pop right here, pop it, wiggle it, and that is now free. Pick it up and out of the way, and we have some access to some more plugs. Now we are going to have to juggle around the heater core hoses as we're taking out these plugs. So it is a good idea to have a cooler engine when doing this part, because if you've been driving for a long time and you go to do this, those pipes could be pretty hot from the coolant running in them. I'm just navigating it around them, and you can find each plug just by following the plug wires, and just pull it out, put it back in with a little bit of that dielectric grease on the white area, and after you do so, do that to all the plugs, and then we'll swap out the plug wires. So all 3 plugs are swapped out. Again, didn't really have to show you much. It was just literally just find the cap, pop it off, and change the plug. Again, this one you just have to have fun a little bit and just make sure you navigate around the hoses. There was nothing really special. If there was like some really special angle, I would have shown you. But either way, once we get over to this, to change these wires, if you're doing so just like myself, we need to change or move this plate, this supporting plate, out of the way. So to do so, you're going to need a 15 mil, and you're going to need, I think that's a 10 mil. So grab a 10 and grab a 15 and pull these 2 bolts, so that way we can move this plate around, and that way we can get around it with our wires. Just like the other side, go ahead and pop this clip right here, just like we did with our little hook pick, and do the same on the far side. Now that we've got these 2 bolts out, this will allow us to move this around, which will be good. See how we can do that? Now we can actually pass wires through. Just be careful, because depending on how old your hoses are, you just don't want to accidentally pull on it too much and then wreck a hose. But now that we have more movement, we can actually pull out these wires, and you might have to pull them all 3 out at once, which isn't a big deal. Why? Because even if we do pull this as a bunch out of here, we can see which wires went to where, and we know that the farthest length goes to the farthest of the engine, which is the firewall, and then the middle, and then of course the one that comes to the front of the vehicle. And from what I can see, this one, which goes to the farthest point of the vehicle, actually goes to the farthest one over here from us, and then middle is actually the middle, and front is actually the front on this side. So it makes it a little bit easier. This one is to the front of the vehicle, center of the vehicle, firewall. Now that we've worked it out, we know our firing order. Let's go ahead, and just like how this is routed, we're just going to transfer the plug holders over, and then we'll feed it back in. So basically, all you're going to do is grab these 3 and hold them at the same measurements. Put this elbow on if you'd like. Again, it's just a protective elbow. You technically don't need to unless you want to. I'm going to reuse it because, hey, anything to protect those wires from getting damaged, that's the best. So pretty easy. You can see these little clips. Just work them around, so that way we can pop it open and lay our new wires in here. Once you've opened up the piece by, like I said, just working those tabs carefully over these nubbins so that way it slips out, next thing you do is you just lift the first one out, and remember, by holding on where it was, grab now our shortest wire that's left, slide it in at the same length that was out. So start it there and just feed it along the neck, then grab our number 2 wire, put it in there, which is our second shortest length, slide it in here, make sure you have the same amount out that was out before, and same with this one, and then we'll seal this back up. So number 1 wire, which is the shortest wire, is right there. Number 2 wire, which is down the center, and number 3, and like they should just stagger just like that. So they'll stagger there and stagger there. Once you go ahead and you have 1, 2, and 3, clip that on. All right, so when we go to do this, just remember just how you did them before. Since we can get in between this plate, just make sure you press the plate, you can kind of lift it, and then you just want to slide this back down into position, which is down there. Just slide it between the tube and the body. Do it 1 wire at a time.
This is a smooth area, so you don't really have to worry about marking up your wires, or as I should say, chafing them. So now that we've got those in there, now we just have to have these nice and loose, like so, and we're gonna slowly feed in our L joint right here, just like so. And make sure you play around with the plate, you work it around that corner, because as we know, that corner is just a little bit fun. It's the only real pain of the whole process. There we go. Wiggle. Now that that's made it across, before we even start tidying up too much of the wires, make sure your length. See, you can see mine's still a little bit short. So what I'm probably gonna do is pop it out, extend the lengths, check your other lengths too. That one will be fine. Our third one is probably, yeah, it's a little longer, which is fine. And adjust that. But yeah, just number one wire, I'm gonna have to pull just a little bit more out and just repeat the process until it's done. As you can see, air filter is all good on here. Make sure it's nice and seals up. And then we're gonna come in here, we're gonna make sure there's these 3 tabs right here. They just lock in right there. We just gotta make sure they slide in, which they do. Make sure our hose is up, our connector is free, and then we're gonna work this in and make sure that works on just like that. Once we do that, remember how I showed you this? You push it down with your finger. So push it down, slide it on. This one right here slides on, clip. This will just go right there. And then down here, make sure our clip locks into right here. Pulls down, same right here. Make sure it sits in the groove. This is now sealed up. I can see it is. Go ahead and tighten this down. I totally forgot to tell you guys to tighten that plate down. I had already done it after I got my wires all done up. Literally just crank them down like you would your spark plugs. If you really wanted to put them to something, I'm not even gonna give you torque spec. Just if you're worried about them coming out, throw a little bit of blue Loctite on the bolts and call it a day, but they're nothing structural. They're just holding that plate. Admire your engine bay, go over your firing order 3 or 4 or 5 times, and then go ahead and start the engine. And as long as it doesn't sound really off or anything like that, you've done a very good job. If you go to start it and it sounds really, really bad, it means that you probably messed up your firing order. So once again, double check it. Well, there you have it. All the plugs are swapped, got our new plug wires in, and it just sounds so much better. Anyways, I hope this helps you out with your process. Thanks again for watching. Press a like if it helped you out. And of course, subscribe for more. Never know what we're going to do on this thing next.